All right, the recording started, Roman. Please take it away from here. I wasn't able to show the project creation, so if you could show the console, then it would be great.
Yeah, okay. So let me just share my screen and then I'll take it over from there. So give me a minute.
Thank you.
Let me share the screen. Just hand it over to some other screens. Okay. Let me know if my screen is visible. It should be, and my audio is fine. I can get going. Okay. All right. So let's kind of start off. But in case some of you are looking at the console which you see over here, so let me know if the screen is good enough, or do you want me to maybe increase the size? Fair enough. Okay. I'll just put it over here. So in case some of you are still, I think either new to Google Cloud or using it for the first time, or maybe even trying to see where to create the project. So, or want to just use a different project for this, you can come over here and just click on a new project over here. So I'll just show you again, like in the top bar here, once you're logged in, this is my current project, but you could just click that to a new project and then take it from there, right? Give the name and so on. So hopefully that gets you all going with the new project in case you need to create that. Now, just focusing on this session that we have today, right? Let me just put up one slide and then we'll take off from there, right? As to what really is our shared goal today while working on the specific lab that we have. So first up, right? I mean, you would have probably got an introduction to Gen AI. You would have got familiar with some of the things that is there in Vertex AI, for example. Maybe you've gone to some of the Vertex AI functionality in Google Cloud Console, tried out a few prompts, so on and so forth, right? Now, the challenge that usually one faces, I'm not saying everyone faces that challenge, it could be depending on what the spectrum is, but the key point is that you need to start integrating some of those models into your applications. So the point now is, how do we integrate that, right? Now, your application could be anything. Your application could be a mobile application. It could be a web application. It could be a command line tool. It's spread all across. But the point is that you want that APIs such that you can invoke, those functionalities, because maybe the Gen AI models that you're invoking, which are hosted in Vertex AI, is probably some part of your application. It's not the entire application. So the whole idea here is, and we'll see one or two examples today, but the first sentence which you see over there, which is like, can we understand some projects that will show the integration with Vertex AI PaLM APIs? And that means that we are going to be ending up using certain services in Google Cloud. We want to make this simple. We want to ensure that you don't get too much hung up on the whole provisioning and things of that nature. So that's why the second point mentions that there are going to be some serverless tools. And by serverless tools, we'll probably look at some cloud functions. Maybe an upcoming session, we'll look at Cloud Run. That's going to be used also moving forward. But the idea is that you've got something working on Vertex AI, the PaLM or the text model or code model, could be any of those models. But how do we now sort of wrap this around maybe an API, some functionality, so that you can then integrate it in as many applications or as many integration points which you require. So that's the whole idea out here, just to make or put some sense to the whole process as to why are we doing this. Remember, once it's there as a cloud function, just maybe a show of hands whether some of you or most of you are familiar with what a cloud function is. Okay, even in case you aren't, don't worry about it, because you'll be writing one. And all we are trying to do is basically provide our own API around the Vertex AI models, such that tomorrow you could potentially do a lot in front of this API. You could do your own authentication, you could maybe rate limit it, you could do some other kinds of logging, any kind of special telemetry, monitoring, observability you could do. So it's almost like saying, let's create an API first, it's controlled by us, and then we integrate it with our application. So I'll just go back and I'll go to the link that's there for today's code lab. And I'm sure this, I'm just looking at the other screen also. So I'm hoping maybe a very quick show of hands that all of you are right now in Google Cloud Console. And at the same time, somewhere in another tab, another screen, you have this code lab opened up. A quick show of hands. Okay, yeah, thanks for the link also in case any one of you needs it. It's put there right now in chat. So this is the code lab you need to open up. That's the code lab you're seeing right now on my screen, which is shared currently. So what are we going to do, right? So in other words, right, they're going to be writing a cloud function. A cloud function, the abstraction is that of a functions as a service. Some of you who are new to Google Cloud Platform but have used maybe an Azure or even AWS, you would have seen they have a functions as a service functionality there too. So those of you who are familiar with AWS Lambda or Azure Functions, the equivalent of that FAS abstraction in Google Cloud is called Google Cloud Functions. And basically the abstraction is that at a function level. So you write a function, it supports multiple languages, but today we are going to be looking at Python specifically, but nothing stops you from writing it in any other language that's supported by Cloud Function. But what we'll be doing is writing a function that takes in a prompt and passes on that prompt basically to a Vertex AI PaLM text Bison model, right? So that's the whole idea of this code lab. So moving forward, right, to the next step, what could be some of the requirements? Obviously, this is all straightforward. I'm assuming you're in your Cloud Console, you've got a Google Cloud project, and of course the credits, etc., or the billing account that we generate behind the scenes has been assigned to the cloud project. Now, few things before you begin, and all of this obviously, so be at step 3. I'm currently at step 3, and at step 3, it's all about just ensuring that you're in the right project. So for example, I'm just showing you, I am in the Cloud Console, and the step also mentions that you should be doing the activate or the Cloud Shell, or going basically into Cloud Shell, which is our, think of it like a nice Linux machine in the cloud that you get as part of your Google account. So I'm in Cloud Console. For those of you using it first time, just observe, it's available as an activate Cloud Shell button out here up where I am. But those of you who are familiar will know what to do. So go ahead and activate it. This can take some time. For those of you who are doing it for the first time, it has to provision, create a home directory, so on and so forth. But just think of it like you've got a nice Linux machine with most of the developer tools already in place over here, especially things like G-Cloud command line tool, which we have. And obviously, I'll also show all the editor in a while. That makes it a bit easier to do. Now, first thing you could do is, and I think before you hit even activate Cloud Shell, it should come through muscle memory again and again as you're using Google Cloud. That just observe, I'll just probably reduce this a bit at the beginning. So you got this particular project. This is my project that I am in. Obviously, remember what you see out there may not be the project ID. So just click it and you will obviously see the project ID that's listed out here. So please keep that in mind. So make sure you're in the right project, and then of course you activate Cloud Shell. You will also find that if all is well, it'll tell you that you are in that specific cloud project. For those of you who just want to try out, you could do G-Cloud config list, and also it shows you a few, I would say metadata about what's currently going on in this section. And the most important one, yes, Abhirami, you have something to say?
Just one thought, Roman. I just wanted you to show the new project from the drop down in case they didn't see the project already listed there. How to create a new project from the top left corner, the drop down for project where it's showing GCP experiments. Yeah.
Okay, so over here, right? if you click that, you'll see something called the new project out here, which I'm highlighting. So in case you all have to create a new project, please come over here and enter, click that button. Obviously, you might see slightly different values for an organization or location, but ideally, just go ahead and put in a specific project name. So for example, if you do say my new project or something, right? Keep in mind that it will also generate a unique project ID. This name can be anything, but the project ID has to be unique. So if you see, though you give my new project, it gave an ID because behind the scenes, we expect a globally unique ID. So if you're lucky enough with a nice project name that's unique, you will get that, but otherwise it will try and append a specific ID to it. So this becomes then your project. Go ahead and create it. Once it's done, make sure that the billing account which you're provisioning or for which you're claiming the credits is then assigned to or allocated or assigned, I would say, to that particular project. Let me know, Abhirami, if we're still good to go or should we wait for a few folks to create that?
We should be good to go. Just that if any of you is facing issue with the billing account, if it says that credits are already fully redeemed, it means that you probably have the credit, the $5 in your account. So go back to the project that it is associated with the credits. If not, try using a different email account to log into Google Cloud and then create a new email basically, and then activate $5 credits using the credits link. So that's the other option. So these two things you could do. Please type in the questions. Let's not take up questions here. Type the questions in the chat. You don't need to create a new project, Rajiv Kumar. You only need it if for some people it's the first time and they don't see any project in the drop down, then they have to create. So that's why I wanted Roman to walk through that. If billing account is closed, then probably you have to use a different email to access that. For those folks who are unable to do either, or if it's too short notice to create a new email account, I'm sharing another link, but I do not encourage this because this has only very limited credits left. So only if you do not have another email that you can associate with the previously provisioned credits link, only those folks please access this. Otherwise, don't. This will also give you $5 credits, but not if many of you would have already used it. So don't try this. If you have $5, get started. But this is only for few folks for whom it's already too late to create a new email account. Use this other link to add the $5 and get started. Okay. Can some of you show of thumbs and let us know that you're all set, and Roman can continue with the rest of the session? Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead, Roman. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah. No problem. Okay. So if I just go back to the code lab, right? Basically, we are saying you're in the Google Cloud Console, step 1, right? And you've selected your specific project for which the billing is enabled. Then, as I mentioned, you're going to be activating the Cloud Shell. And that was as simple as just activating that icon up there. And I'm right now in Cloud Shell, as you can see. And the gcloud list command that I gave was, gcloud config list command that I gave. Of course, you can see the project ID here. You will see a different one in your case. But this is also a good way by which you can actually see what's the current project. And in case it's rare, but in case it's not set or something of that sort, that's why we have this command that says gcloud config set project, and you set it to your project ID, then it should be set to the right one. But if it's all done correctly, you should be able to have it. But just in case you don't, go ahead and give this command also. Now, we require two, what you can say, environment variables, because we will use that subsequently in our deployment commands also. You can obviously hard code it also while giving those commands, but just as a good practice, I've created two variables over here, environment variables. One is GCP project and the other one is GCP region. We'll discuss why these variables are there later on when we see the code. But basically, the thing should be as straightforward as, for example, like export. So I'm just doing it. You can do it along with me. GCP project, and this should be equal to that project ID. So in my case, it's GCP experiments and that number. So I'm going to be do that, but don't copy me as is. This should be your project ID. That's why the instruction here says, please put in your project ID as is, right? So just put that variable which you, sorry, the value which you see. So in my case, I'm just going to be doing this as the first one. And the next one, which is this, if I go back to that, it's the GCP region, right? So GCP region, this is where we'll be deploying our cloud function. So obviously, take a look at the documentation. Cloud function, like many other Google Cloud services, are available in various Google Cloud regions. So like there's US Central, for example, there is Asia, there is Europe. There are many regions across, and if you go to Google Cloud Functions or Cloud Run or GKE or Compute Engine, any of the services pages, you will see in which locations they are. So in this case, the region that I'm going to go with is the US Central one. You can go with that too, right? So I'm just setting these two variables. Now, keep in mind, it's happened to me several times, still keeps happening. I sometimes end up typing those words wrong or something or the other. So just make sure that you just use, these practices to ensure that the values are indeed there, right? So just as a, maybe I just have this habit. So after having got burned several times, so that's why just make sure that these variables are indeed set correctly and they are pointing to the values which are respective project ID, but US Central one is fine. So far, so good. This is absolutely essential, folks, before we go ahead. Just a show of hands where you folks are. Okay, a few more seconds, but ensure these two variables, because even the repository that we will point you to, there are several examples there, and all of these depend upon these two variables. Remember, if you don't want to set this, then when you give the command later on, you will need to then explicitly give the value. So it's up to you. It can be done in either way. It's no hard and fast that you have to do it this way. All right. So having said that, let's move forward to the next step, which is that, and very important one, which is that, you have to enable certain cloud services. Now, you will see here, there is a command that we've already given to you. So it's a gcloud command. So for example, if you're in Cloud Shell here, and if you just type gcloud, that just shows you that the tool is already installed, okay? So, and we're going to give the specific command for enabling services. And that command, right, what does it do? Is it enables several of the services in one shot. There is Cloud Build, there is Cloud Functions, there is Cloud Run, and then, of course, there are some logging storage APIs, and of course, the Vertex AI invocation that we have been doing. So like literally 5 to 6 services are enabled. So carefully go ahead and, just copy this, command, whatever, as is, and paste it in your Google Cloud Shell and ensure that it executes successfully and these services are enabled. There are many ways to enable, many other ways also to enable it. In my case, obviously I've enabled, but just in case you're curious, I'm just showing that to you. You can also go to, for example, if you just type the above search bar APIs, and you will obviously see, you might get confused of which API and things like that also, right? So one of the other ways to do that, that's of course via the search bar if you know what you're doing. But otherwise here, if you just come down to the main menu on the left, you'll see something called API services. And you'll see this enabled. You can get through multiple places. I'm just showing you different ways. So if you go to enabled APIs and services, the gcloud command just makes it easy and enables it for you. But just in case you wanted to do it on your own manually, you know which service to enable, you can always come to this page, click on enable APIs and services, and you can now select, for example, like if you say translate, right? So it'll show you various services that could be there. And then when you click it, it'll tell you whether it's enabled or not. You can accordingly do it that way. Management is already there, but otherwise you'll see an enable button. I'm just showing you multiple ways. So ensure, I'll just go back to my dashboard here. So ensure that you have run this command and all the services that are mentioned over here. Ideally, just paste it. You should be fine. It'll just tell you the operation successfully completed. In my case, I've already done this for this project, so I'm not running it in front of you. But looks fine, everyone. Just looking at the screen, everything looking okay. Fair enough. If they are not enabled, be assured that the commands, when you try to run them, will complain, right? Something will go wrong. So eventually, you're going to be forced to sort of pick this up. But remember, just as a thought, not as a thought, but as a rule, we have multiple Google Cloud services. Now, you might always say, why don't we just enable all of these services, straight away? Why are we told to enable each one, on their own? Just a little digression, but just to make sure that A, you don't enable all, because otherwise it means these services are on, people could misuse it. Second, these services end up costing. So you need to be very sure as to what you really enable. So by default, of course, a few ones will be, but not all of them. So if you're running into any issues, typically look at the error. There might be a chance that these services are not enabled. G-Cloud commands will actually force you. They will tell you, hey, you're trying to do this, but this is not enabled. So do you want me to enable? Yes, no. If you hit some of that, please go ahead and enable it. So having said that, let's go to the next step, which is to deploy the cloud function. Now, there's no fun trying to just say, hey, just copy this, deploy it, and we are done and it works, right? Let's try to understand what's going on. So first up, before I actually get into the code, right? So don't go ahead and run this. Just be patient with me. I just want you all first to go ahead and, clone this repository. And before you just clone the repository, let me just go there for a moment, which is, I should just go here. This is the GitHub repo that we have for various Google Cloud applications. And you will see here, just if you go down, there is a nice little table that we've done our best to try and explain what's going on. So here you will see multiple applications, out of which we are going to be using one of them, which is the text predict cloud function, right, in Python. But you can see those of you who feel like using other applications for integration, whether it's a Flutter app to maybe even a Gradio or a Streamlit app, or even, a Chrome extension, app script, Slack stuff, whatever you want to call it, right? So there are various applications that we've made available. This is the repository that we are telling you to clone. And today we are going to be going into one of them to actually show you integration with the text farm model. But this is a great way by which you can then extend your knowledge. And maybe I think the next session that we have, session 5 of Code Vipassana season 4, we'll be looking at another one application from this repository itself. So as a start, right, let's go once again to our, Cloud Shell. Just in case, for those of you who are new, if Cloud Shell remains active for a certain amount of time, it might end up disconnecting. So if you try to type something, it'll tell you it's got disconnected. Do you want to reconnect? You will see a reconnect button. Feel free to just click that and all will be fine. After that, you'll be once again into the console over here. Now, so what I want you to do, and of course, let me do this since I was testing it out, I might be having the repository. So I'm going to just delete it so that it's all there from scratch as I do it with you. Okay, so we are done with this. Now let's go to the fourth step, which said first clone this repository, right? So just take this whole command that you see. And we will just be here and be in your home directory. For those of you who are not sure what it is, just do a present, whatever, working directory, and you will see whatever home and most likely your account name. So I'm going to just paste in this git clone command, which you see. It should take a few seconds and should ideally, get all the things into this Gen AI app templates Google Cloud. Please don't hold me to this name. I tried my best, but this is the best I could come up with. So what the next step tells you is that navigate to the folder of the project that we'll be building, right? So of course, CD command and do that, but I just wanted to show it in a slightly different way. So obviously, if I go to the Gen AI app templates, the thing that we cloned right now. Obviously, here you're going to be seeing all of those, projects that I showed you in the GitHub repo. Out of that, we're going to be going to this particular text credit cloud function. So that's what this command tells you, that go to so and so and then go into the text credit cloud function. So I'm just going to go there and I'm out there. Okay. So far, so good. Everyone cloned, went into that directory. Looks fine. Okay. Now, before we jump into just deploying it, let's understand what's going on. So for those of you who've not used Cloud Shell, remember there's also this nice editor called, it's based on VS Code itself. So please use that. So I'm in my current directory, as you can see now, is from the home, the one which we cloned, and into the text predict cloud function. So I'm just going to be doing Cloud Shell, workspace, and a dot, right? So this will open up the editor. Again, I'm just showing you the code and explaining it to you, though the code lab doesn't have it. So as you can see, it's, I'm in the editor and see I can keep swapping between the terminal. If you just click on open editor and go to that folder, that's fine too, either way. But I just opened it in that particular folder. So as you can see now here, I'm in the text predict cloud function, right? And 3 files only, nothing great happening over here. Now this README is similar to, let's say, the whole code lab which you got here. So don't worry about that. Now, what we're going to be doing is something like this, right? And for a moment, let me, for those of you who attended the previous ones, it might be clear to you, but really speaking, let me go for a moment to what so that you get the whole picture, right? And there's no magic involved anywhere. So I am in Vertex AI, slight digression, but important one. Okay. So I am in Vertex AI right now. And you see something here called Generative AI Studio. And of course, we have language models. We have got the vision models in language. As you know, we've got our text model. There is a chat model. There's also the code model. But over here, right, if you wanted to work with the PaLM text model, we give you this UI tool to play around with. So for example, if I say, what happened in history today, right? Something. Maybe if you do this up next year and say what happened in history, hopefully it's going to answer that code Vipassana season 4 happened today. But for now, it might give us a different answer. So again, here, as you see, we're just giving a prompt, the ways we can play around with these parameters and models, etc. But if you just submit this, obviously it hits the text PaLM model with the prompt, and it's going to give you back a response. Okay. And it gave you some response, right? So let's not worry about that. We got some answer back also. But the thing I wanted to show you, maybe you've seen it before, is you see this something called view code, right? Which is that suppose if I had to invoke this model with the prompt, get back a response, how do I invoke it? So the view code part, when we click that, right, you see there is Python, Colab, curl, etc. But it's already given you the code that you can see for Python, right? So this is actually the code that we will be taking, putting it inside our cloud function, and then that's how we are going to be exposing this endpoint. You see? So this is what I wanted to explain to you so that you understand what we are doing, from where have I got this code. We're actually using what the Vertex AI service itself is suggesting to go ahead and call this, right? So now, if some of you are sharp, you would have noticed I told you to set 2 parameters, project ID and location, right? If you can see, there is a line here that says, how do I initialize the Vertex library in Python? 2 parameters are required, which is the project ID and the location. That's why we set it, so that we pass those things at runtime by environment variables, and your function takes it. So we can hard code it, but why hard code, right? When you can sort of parameterize or externalize it. So hopefully this is giving you a picture as to what I'm doing, why this code lab is, where I've got the code from, and what precisely is going on. So this is the code that you will see now. I'll just go back to my uh, editor, and in the editor, in the main.py, right? So I'm going to be writing a cloud function. Is this code font okay, or you still want it bigger? I can try some other look. Okay, fair enough. Thanks. You folks even have it in front of you, so you can even see that. But in case you're following it on the screen, so I'm writing a cloud function now. So obviously, I'm using in requirements. You'll see we have got a framework called the functions framework. You can look this up also. But again, here the Python libraries that I'm taking, again, please pardon me if you're not a Python person. I will point out you to Java as well as some other code during the course of this session itself. We've got it in the sample, so in case you want to not deal with Python, that's okay. Just follow it over here, and then we'll take it from there. So straightforward libraries. We've got the functions framework, which we use for writing our cloud function. Obviously, behind the scenes, it's the Vertex AI and basically the cloud platform. Sorry, cloud AI platform. So that's the another package we have here. And obviously, I like to do a bit of logging because my code never works the first time. So I've got Google Cloud Logging. Or if for those of you who are much better than me, you might be straight away debugging in production. So you better start logging then from day one. So we go back to the main.py, and over here, right? As you can see, again, don't worry if you're not a Python person, but whatever be the environment variables we are setting, and we will see how to pass it to Cloud Run also for deployment. Basically, those two things which were needed for project ID and region, we're just extracting out those values. Next is okay, just some logging setup in Google Cloud. If you're not too worried about it, you can skip that. But then just focus on this function. So in this function, right, it's a cloud function. This functions as a service. It gets in, we've just given it a name, but we are extracting out the JSON that's passed as a post to it. If a prompt is there, I'll just show you then how you invoke it. Basically, the prompt variable is there in the post for that HTTP API call. We are extracting that out. Then, as you can see, that same code goes on. We are initializing the Vertex library with the project ID location. Next thing is important. I'm selecting which model, which is the text model. Again, the same code from there, some parameters being passed, and that's it. Then you just go ahead and predict, right? And that's the method call that's there on the model. So basically what we are saying is that when you invoke an API, all you will need to do now is simply pass the prompt. Once the prompt is passed, it extracts it out, it instantiates the text bison model, and it just invokes that model and gets back a prompt response. It gives back a JSON, response. This very simple one. You can tweak this if you want to. This, as you can see now, right? Whether you're calling it from a mobile app or wherever it may be, it's just going to be a question of making a simple REST post, API call, passing the prompt, and you'll get back a JSON response to it. That's all that's going on in the code, and hopefully now you will also understand what's going on in the next step. So basically the fourth step in this, the fourth point in this step tells you that there is the main.py and the requirements.py. This is the one that we have discussed, but in case you want to go by the GitHub thing, this is what I've shown you. I think this URL is a bit incorrect, so don't go from there. So maybe Abhi, that's a note for us. Yeah. Okay. So just whatever you have cloned, please look at the main.py and requirements from there itself. Now, hopefully, if all this is good, then we need to go ahead and deploy this cloud function. So we are going to be using the gcloud command. But remember, just like how the enable APIs was there, you can always use the UI also to deploy the cloud function. But let's pick this up because this helps you then even do other automation. So before you just fire off this command, just give me a minute. So basically what we are doing is we are saying that please deploy this function. The function is called predict text. You can give any name you want, but predict text is a function that we are calling. Gen 2, we've got a different runtime for our cloud function, which is based on generation 2, which is based on Cloud Run, which actually does the containerization. Don't worry too much. If you ignore this parameter also, you'll get it on Gen 1 and it will be fine. But take the latest this. Runtime specifies which language you have written your cloud function. So tomorrow, if it is a Java thing, or it is a Node.js one, or it is even .NET and many others, runtimes Ruby, we support quite a bit of it. Please go ahead and change this to that one. In this case, it's Python 3.11. Then remember which region you want to put your function in. That's why I see it's reading the dollar, the environment variable for region, which we set. Source code. Where is the source code? You're telling me to deploy a function, but where is it, right? So in this case, we're just saying it's in the current directory because we'll be firing our gcloud command from that directory itself. Next, from that file, it needs to know what's the function, what's the start point for it, right? So that's why if I just go over here, as you can see in my main.py, there is this entry point. Don't worry, this can be any method name, but you need to give it what's that point. So that's what we are specifying. Cloud functions can be triggered by directly via HTTP. There can be even GCS trigger. So when you upload a file, it gets triggered. Or if you update a record in Firestore, it gets triggered. In our case, we just make it an endpoint. So the trigger is directly HTTP. Now remember in the code, right? Pay attention. In the code, I was directly reading from the environment variables. I was not hard coding these values. So I could have done that. But that's why if you're going to be reading it from the environment, then you better pass it, when you deploy the function. So that's what we are doing. So we are actually using a set env vars, which is one of the ways. And see, we are actually saying GCP project is one variable, which is to the value we've set, and GCP region is the other one. And that's why that's the two pieces of, or two variables that we are reading out here, right? And finally, there are ways by which you can secure your function endpoint, but in our case, we're keeping it simple. So I'm just doing a allow unauthenticated. Otherwise, you have to pass the correct auth token in order to make the call. Good practice in real world, you'll not do allow unauthenticated, but it's fine for now. And obviously, max instances, you can ignore it for the moment. This is just to make sure that in case someone hits your endpoint and tries to really make life miserable for you, in a sense, I'll start a load testing tool and I'll bombard from 10,000 threads hitting your endpoint. Basically, since it's serverless, it will start scaling up, which means it will start creating more instances. But by doing this, you protect yourself. You make sure that whatever happens, well, it's going to be only one max instance, whatever it can take, right? So it's just a little bit of a thing over here. So hopefully this explains to you each and everything what we are doing out here. You can still look at the documentation, but now is a good time. Go ahead and please, copy this command as is and paste. It should take a while. I'm going to be doing it together. So I'm going to go to the terminal. Just make sure you are in that text predict cloud function directory. If confused, just do an ls, see those files. They should be there. Otherwise, the source dot will fail, right? So make sure you're there and paste that command. Now, in my case, I already have a predict text deployed earlier. So don't do this. What I'm doing, I'm just doing it for my sake. So I'm just going to call it predict text 2 in my case, because I've already got a predict text deployed. And I want to keep it running for my other integrations, which might just break if I delete it. But in your case, it will be predict text 2. So go ahead and just hit the command. A lot of things happen behind the scenes. This could take easily somewhere from a minute to 2 minutes. And what really happens is it's going to take all your source code. When it says preparing function, is taking your source code. It's using some technology behind the scenes, build packs, etc. Packaging that into a container. Of course, while doing that, it will compile your code, check the dependencies, install the dependencies. All of that stuff, once it's done, it's going to push it into an artifact registry from which it goes and deploys it. It does a health check to make sure, hey, is it really live, working or not? And if all goes well, it should take a minute or so, you will find a flurry of commands and you will get an endpoint for the function. So I'm hoping all of you have launched this command at least. US Central is not found. Vaishnavi, please correct that. It should be US Central 1. Yeah, US dash Central 1, correct. Okay, so let's go on. How many of you have been able to deploy it? Okay, I'm still lagging behind, so hopefully it gets through. So remember, even if you want to make changes to it, right? Go ahead, make changes to the code, and again come and fire the same command, right? So as you can see over here, this completed for me. This is something similar that you should see. And you will see that somewhere at the end, you see this URL, right? Which is cloudfunctions.net predict 2. And because in my case, my name was predict 2. But if you go back to the, let's say, instructions, you will find that after you have deployed it successfully, the URL should be something like this. So I've just made it a shortcut here that it should be the region, US Central 1 dash, whatever your project ID, cloudfunctions.net, and whatever be the name. So that's what you're seeing. So no mystery here. It's just the same thing. So my region, then the project ID, and then whatever, right? So now don't invoke it directly. I just wanted to show you a few other things before you fire a curl command and all that. So since we are in the UI, obviously we use gcloud command and we, deployed this function. But let's say if we wanted to see what happened, right? Like, did it deploy, not deploy? Can I see it in some different ways? We're about to exit a prompt. Yeah, okay. That's fine. So I'm here now, as you can see in my cloud functions. You might not see these many functions. You might see that one particular credit point. Just hold on, folks. If you're trying to pass the prompt, that's what I'm trying to show you also. So just follow. And you got cloud functions, and in your UI, you might not see so many functions. In my case, this is the cloud function that we deployed right now, 22nd November, almost near 9 o'clock. It's real, so I'm not like, on this screen or something like this. So go ahead, click that particular function which you have seen deployed, and start looking at a few things which you see here. Tomorrow someone says, hey, your function is not working, right? I thought it was working. Come over here, take a look at the metrics, see some of the data that you could see here. You also got logs for your function, which might indicate something is going wrong or not. You will also see the source which you deployed. So the same thing, right? As you notice, when it's preparing the function and then putting it up, it actually took everything from your current directory and it put it up there. So in case you want to edit directly here also, you can just do an edit, change the function. You see this entry point, which we did the runtime of Python. Then remember variables, we passed at environment. So those are the two that you're seeing here. Trigger, as you know, was HTTP directly. So that's the one you are having over here. And testing. And this is what I wanted to show. You can do a curl directly from the command line, which is there as one of the steps. But we also have got this pre-built thing for you. So instead of this name, which is pre-built, we need to pass a prompt. Okay. And if you see here, there's a URL that's ready. If you just directly invoke it, right? What's going to happen? There's going to be an error. I'm not a good coder. I've written bad code. I don't even check if prompt was passed or not and then do something. I straight away do some crazy stuff. That's the code you have to fix. You can improve it. But if you just call it without invoking a prompt, this is the error that you're going to see. But in our case here, since I'm going to the testing part, this is how you're passing the JSON. So I'm doing a prompt and I'm passing maybe not hello world. Let me pass like, let's say, where is Mumbai? Let's ask this. And you do test function. Now, when this happens, this is going to hit your cloud function, get back and see that it ran successfully with the whole, response text and the answer. So far, so good. Now, the same thing, right? If this is not how you would like to do things, then that's what also the step tells you, which is your fifth step, which is fire this curl command. And this curl command is the same thing. It's going to be hitting your endpoint. Of course, make sure those environment variables are still valid. In case you have restarted your cloud shell, the first thing that's going to disappear most likely is these environment variables or values. Or you can paste this thing from the cloud function URL itself. And again, same stuff. So if I just take this maybe and copy it and go back to, let's say, our terminal, I'll just put it out here too and paste it. It's the same thing. And you should see a response coming back soon, right? So just make sure that since you are calling it that way, some of those variables are in place, right? Otherwise, you might just find that. Otherwise, hardcode it and provide the actual URL. That's fine too. I mean, no hard and fast thing. It's just a one way of showing it. Show of hands, everyone's completed this. That's pretty much what we have in the lab here. Okay. I just went a little bit here and there to maybe just highlight what's going on behind the scenes, what's happening where. Clean up, of course, up to you. Just hold on for a moment before you want to clean up things. If it's there in your account, let it be there if you want to refer to it. But keep in mind, you can come here anytime. Suppose you say, hey, I lost my code, source code. Where is it? Don't worry. Come over here to the cloud function, whichever be your cloud function, right? I'll just, so you can just go there, go to this source part, and you will get, and you see this download zip here. So you can use that to get back all of your code also. So we know things go wrong, but that's why this has been made that way. Now, I can take in some questions, but before I take in some questions, I just wanted to cover some part of it very quickly, which is the whole Langchain way of doing things. So far, right, you would have seen that in our code, right, or even by Vertex AI, when we said view code or show us the code, we directly are using Google packages out here, right, which is the Vertex AI or the cloud AI platform that's made for you. Now, tomorrow, you might just say that, you know what, I think Google Cloud AI platform is good for a certain maybe functionality, but maybe embeddings or something else I want to use from somewhere else. So, at times you want to mix and match, or not match, but basically mix, aggregate, or whatever sequence, multiple LLMs that could be there also. Not just that, but, LLMs won't reside in isolation. They'll have to have input data coming in from various source systems. Maybe they have to invoke some external systems, call it, right? So many things are going on. Now, do you write code for each one of them, or is there some kind of an abstraction that makes it easier, right? So if I just go quickly to this particular, I would say, brief presentation that I've got, right? So Langchain, right? We just wanted to highlight it so that in case you are working with more than one LLM, more than one, data sources, let's show some of the use cases. So it becomes a bit easier for you to use instead of directly. But if you just focus, let's say only Vertex AI, go ahead, just use that particular API, you should be fine. So Langchain, it's a popular framework, it's open source, it's available on Python, JavaScript, but in case some of you Java folks want to try similar abstractions, there's also a Langchain for Java, but not from these guys. It's a separately maintained one by interested folks. Again, the use cases that I'm showing you are, you may not have an LLM in isolation, right? You might want to call some external thing. So as you're creating, let's say, a bigger application, you might want to sequence their outputs. Maybe you might want to even aggregate their outputs, right? But how do we do all of this? It becomes quite tedious to sort of, I would say, talk to each one of these APIs independently. That's why, again, we won't be going into each one of them, but this just shows you the scope of Langchain, which is there are various abstractions or building blocks. That's the key to Langchain, right? So models, which you see in the top right. So not just Vertex AI, tomorrow, even if you want the Facebook models or let's say even the OpenAI models, etc., these are abstracted out for you. Similarly, prompts, how do we construct them? How do we parameterize them? Vector stores, right? Different ones. Why just Vertex AI, matching engine or something of that sort? It could be even maybe the other vector stores that you know about. Similarly, like if I go back for a moment, how do we chain these things together? How do we maybe aggregate them? Or how do we just say we want to do a task and then it needs to automatically take over, pick the right agents model, etc. So There are various aspects to Langchain. It's a very detailed thing, but it's a great thing to maybe invest some of your time in case you're building LLM applications and see if that's a library or framework you might want to use. The key thing is something like this, right? So you got Google Cloud. Now, Langchain goes somewhere by which it will be able to talk to all of these. So if you see on the left side, right, there, you might want to bring in data from BigQuery. You might want to bring in data from your PDF files which are on cloud storage and then index them, right? So instead of knowing each API, you could just use Langchain, its constructs. And why? Because this diagram hopefully shows you something. This is something I put up today, which is just see the scope, right? Whether you want to, which LLMs in Google Cloud is integrated with, which documents it can automatically load, which vector stores in Google Cloud it can work with. Even for example, if now you want to do something like, I have my PDF files on Google Cloud Storage. I would like to take each of the PDF files and create a vector index out of it, that is a vector store. And then I would like to maybe interact with that LLM and make a call. All of this stuff, right, you can now chain together using you can do it on your own using the APIs, but Langchain just gives you an abstraction. And just as an example, it's there on what you call GitHub and everywhere, which I put in that repository. But I will just go, hopefully I've shown you all predict text too, right? And you would have seen in the source code right now, which you deployed, it has some calls like, okay, I have to initialize it this way. Then I've got this text generation model, and this is my code, right? This is basically from the Vertex AI one. But I also deployed a Langchain version of it a little bit earlier in the evening. And if I see this source code, of course, requirements, you can see I've included the Langchain dependency. And in the main.py, you will see the code. Basically, now I'm importing Vertex AI, right? Because this is the LLM supported. One of them is Vertex AI. And all I'm doing is, as you can see, I'm just instantiating an LLM, which is a Vertex AI one. And simply I'm telling in this LLM, pass this prompt. And it gives back a response, and that's it. Now, imagine this. Instead of Vertex AI, you could substitute it with an OpenAI also. So if I go to this Langchain documentation and the library, right? And if you look at, let's say for a moment, a quick start, okay? And as you can see over here, right? Instead of the Vertex AI, in this case, it is a OpenAI one. So you can continue to use cloud functions. And if you feel you want to mix and match not just LLM models, I'm just showing you a very small piece of code. But instead of Vertex AI, you could have imported completely some other LLM also, even for the vector search, even for the prompts. So this is a great abstraction that lets you mix and match services across what you're seeing over here, either LLMs or models or document loaders. Again, this is only a mapping to Google Drive. But if you go to Langchain, documentation, and if I look at integrations over here, as you can see, Google is one of the providers. That's why you are seeing all of these things over here. But you could even have AWS, Microsoft, OpenAI, and wow, 187 more items. So be my guest and try it out. So hopefully this also gives you some picture. Again, all of these examples, you are, it's there on the repository that you cloned, right? And this repository again is available out here any point in time. We just saw one of them today, which is providing an API for the Vertex AI PaLM model. And we saw this cloud function Python part. Those of you on Java, go ahead, try it. Langchain, you can try that too. In the next session, obviously, we're going to be looking at a chat model, but it's a similar kind of a lab. So hopefully this gives you a good picture of why we did this and how you can use Google Cloud constructs to maybe externalize or provide an API. See, tomorrow your API could be doing many things. You might say that I'll call an LLM, Vertex AI, and then combine it with something else and provide a JSON response. So this just gives you the constructs to start using it. Cloud function, and you saw how simple it was to deploy it. And yeah, that's pretty much what I had. LLM, sorry, the Langchain one was more to just tell you that you could potentially use that also instead of directly coding to the respective cloud provider or the LLM API specific to that cloud provider. All right, so that's what I had. Hopefully, you all were able to do the lab. And in case you have some questions, I'm happy to take them too. So please go ahead. I'm looking at the screen. I don't know if you want to say the question or type it. Either way is fine with me. Yeah, sorry, Abhi.
Roman, I was just saying, could you tell them what they need to submit for result? Just the screenshot of the app or the deployed cloud function URL, right?
Yeah, so ideally, if you go to your cloud functions, maybe just show us that you've deployed it. So if you just go to the detail page, maybe just send us a screenshot of this. This is one. And of course, the next thing you ideally should give us is just give this curl command and show that whole thing. So this screenshot also would be nice to see, so that we can validate that you've indeed called what you had to. Yeah.
Yeah, any one of those screenshots would be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's take two questions. For regarding deletion of project, you don't have to delete the project for this particular assignment, because this one does not include any instance like we had for the spanner instance session, right? This one does not have any instance and it won't eat up any credit while it's deployed. But if you're going to share your link somewhere publicly, be careful, because that will, if someone keeps hitting it, it will use up all the credits. If you're using it one time, it's fine. It will only cost you like very negligible amount, which is like 0.001 or 0.002 cents. Sorry, dollars. So it's very minimum. That's okay. You can still delete the deployed function by going to the cloud functions page and just selecting that particular cloud function and click delete. That's it. Roman's pointing to that one. Yeah. Once you submit the result, you can delete it if you want. You could delete it if you don't want to keep the code. So that's totally fine. Roman, do you want to take Lekia's question? She has had some internal server error. I don't know which step you completed, Lekia, but you can unmute yourself and speak up, because I know that you.
The only thing I see is if you've not passed the prompt. So I hope you've not clicked the function directly. So if you click like this, you'll obviously see an error because no prompt is passed and my code doesn't have all the checks in place. So best thing would be that you should go to either the testing thing that we showed here, change. So for example, if I give nothing here, and I'm going to just say that, sorry, let me minimize this a bit. And if I just say test the function, what is that? What happened? I can't even see those things. So, for example, the way I would do it is obviously here it's telling you. So if you give this prompt and we say, let's say, how are you? And we test it. So this extracts out the prompt variable. It will need to be passed in this JSON format, and see it just gives you back a response over here. However, let's say I make a mistake and pass something wrong, then obviously, you see that I got a 500 server error, because if I see the source code, I'm not really written the code in the right way. But this is something that you can, bulletproof. Yeah, I mean, I've intentionally kept it this way because there are reasons for this. I have another demo that goes together with it, where I then, for example, like if I'm within the functions thing, then I also show that, look, if there are errors, then you can see the logs, and here you go. You can see why it failed. So that's why I've kept it intentionally that way. So you can, it also helps to show people we have got a logging thing and you can debug what's going on. Yeah, that's right. Don't expect me to change the code at any point in time. I'll keep it this way. Did it solve that? Maybe you just called it directly. How to go to the cloud functions page? Yeah, this can be tricky at times. Multiple ways. One is you see this search bar on